Hello, welcome back to Living Resonance. I'm Munifa, and today we're exploring the cosmic current of the gene keys and the lunar cycle so you can cultivate your voice, live your genius, and weave your legacy in harmony with the current frequencies. So, that is currently the lunar phase of the new moon in Virgo, which is gene key 46 and also human design gate 46. So we're experiencing the themes of the shadow of seriousness, the gift of delight, and the city of ecstasy. So that is the gene key. And it's also giving us this hint of genius of what is true embodiment. And so we're going to go into quantum human design first, which is Karen Curry Parker's translation of human design, which we love over here. And it is literally the word embodiment that she uses for this gate. Okay. And when we're talking about this gate, it brings up the challenge of how we understand how to make abundant choices that are sustainable when it comes to working with others and within our own parameters of our own goals and what we're aspiring to. Yeah. So, like, and then how we are collaborating and initiating the work that it takes to achieve those goals. And of course, when that happens, that's a matter of how are we sharing what we have to offer in a sustainable way, in a way that everybody is prospering. So, and so for her, that creates the possibility, or the way that we create that possibility is through the understanding that there's enough, that we're enough, that everything that we need is available, including the support from others that can allow us to create what we're here to create in the world so that we don't. And it's very interesting because this week I also sent out a post talking about not giving up on your dreams and that this is probably the best time to work towards your dreams because it in this kind of climate, what you get is a pressure cooker that allows for you to kind of get to the diamond of that desire, of that goal, and the dreams that we hold. And so the fulfillment here, she wants you to understand, is coming from the essence of the feeling of abundance and sufficiency is coming from the essence of fulfillment and sharing. And that we can create relationships that allow for that. And that can be the foundation of our life so that we can freely enjoy what we're creating and sharing and receiving as well. And that's what it takes. It takes both, right? And I think a lot of us get fooled into just having enough of the money resources, just having the wealth in and of itself is going to solve all the other problems. But the truth is that all the reason we want the money is so that we can enjoy each other, right? And enjoy who we get to be with each other, whether that's family, whether that's friends, whether that's working collaboration and art. Yeah. So all of those things, we just want enough of the things and the resources so that we can truly relax, feel safe, and feel like we can create to our heart's desire. Right. And the interesting thing is that's always a paradox because safety is the truth of embodiment. Like, how do we know something's embodied? This one is so settled in the body that it is the truth of our experience and our and the felt experience of our emotions. So it allows us to know that we can actually feel happy. So we can pretend that we're happy. We're going to actually get into this as we move into the gene key here, because there's a lot of ways to just kind of float happiness and then say that means we're happy, or ignore it in the pursuit of the goal, meaning that when I get the goal, I get to be happy, right? Or that will make me happy. And the truth is, goals are goals. Like, no matter what they are, you're just going to achieve it. And then you're going to want to get something else done. You're going to want something else that you want to achieve after that. That's what cycles are, right? And so it doesn't change just because you've got something else. And that's what we've learned, especially as a capitalistic society, is that you can get as much stuff as you ever thought you ever dreamed you wanted and realize it's still not enough. So what is sufficient? How do we know? That's the genius really of embodiment, I think, and of this essence of this frequency. So here, moving from the quantum human design definition, we're going to move into the gene keys again. So the shadow here again is seriousness in gene key 46. And the gift is delight, and the city is ecstasy. So, what is this seriousness? What's wrong with being serious? I'm serious. I'm a serious gal, right? But like, obviously not that serious. But the truth is that it can create problems if we are taking the life that we have so seriously, so serious. We can also see where it goes in the other direction because it doesn't mean to not take life seriously either. And that's what's true about the shadow. There's not really a right and wrong directionality. You can't literally go either way. You have to find the essence that wants to be revealed in the frequency for it to have the truth of that culmination. So that's the power there. So as opposed to the city of ecstasy, um, we are here experiencing the agony in the shadow of seriousness. And so what that means essentially is that in our bodies, when we're overly serious, then we get this feeling of not enjoying life. It's this agony of, oh, this is my like life. Life can feel like a constant, oh my gosh, why am I here? If you're not able to move out of this shadow, it's a constant, almost depression, but it's more agonizing than that. This kind of drudgery of I'm always doing and I'm never getting or never reaching a goal and it's never enough. It's not sufficient or it's not sustainable. I can't keep this up. There's no way I can keep doing this every day. So again, this is kind of the questions that have been coming up for me over the course of this month of like, I know I can do more things to move forward, but is it sustainable? Will I feel joy in it? And then I feel like I'm kind of asking the question backwards mostly this month because it's like, okay, what would bring me joy you know, from the jump, from the start, right? Initially, instead of waiting to the after. And again, that's another kind of takeaway that we're getting from the embodiment piece from Karen Curry Parker was that how are we initiating that work and that collaboration with others as well? So what are we putting in that initial mix? The ingredients make the meal is how you can think of this. And so if you're starting out with an over seriousness, then there can be a sense that there will never be a delight. That's agonizing. And that's kind of what we're in it for, is to feel something that's nice that we're hoping for, right? That's why we put in the effort to begin with. And including in relationships, because the relationships can be really hard. And so we at some point want some happiness out of it, right? I think if you're only expecting happiness from relationships, then you're missing the point there too. But it should be there in some part of the cycle, right? So um, so Richard Reich helps us understand that we are developing this understanding of the lighter and this ability to experience it through our first years on the planet. So 0 to 7, this is when our body's building the understanding of being in a physical world, right? And so our spirit is kind of like still new to this, right? And so it's really about, in some ways, the body is teaching the spirit what to expect in the world, right? So your patterns are developed in this 0 to 7 age range. So what happens in this aspect when it's not working out that way is that the body doesn't feel safe. So something about the way the body is being developed, so by the parents often, is where we're getting this sense of safety or not safe. And one of the reasons that the body knows it's safe is for the spirit to know it's loved. And that's the and then this is the again a physical aspect of love, that they are being shown love in all the ways of being taken care of as a child, right? And so the nature of this frequency is that it develops during a time when if the parents don't understand what it means to have self-love and to have this feeling of safety and comfortability within their own body, then they pass on that pattern and that feelingness to the children. So this is very interesting to me because like my mom, my mom was in a new country and she was originally from Jamaica, but she had lived already some years in England and then came to America, was in America for maybe, I would say, maybe like 7 years or so. By the time I was maybe only 5 or 6 years by the time I was born. She's in a new place. She does, of course, is far removed from family. She's moved twice now, right? And in a new relationship, new 4-year relationship with my father. So when I think back to that for her, I'm thinking, how safe could she have felt, right? Like if I mean, I don't know. I don't know what the truth of the relationship was with my father, but I know that my mother has always been independent and a hard worker because of the history of her family and has always had to kind of support herself and having a second child with no real stability because in her mind, I think that would have included a house. And I think we are living in an apartment at the time. So these kind of things are what divine, like kind of how do we enter the world and could it mean for us? What are the patterns that are developed? I have decided that that has meant that my mother did not feel safe when I was being born, and that there's patterns in my health that are markers for that, which is I have a skin, like it's been diagnosed as eczema. I think it's psoriasis, but whatever. It's all my life since I was a child. I've had skin rashes, right? And then when I look at the epigenetics of that thing, a lot of people whose parents were under extreme stress, who felt like that, who had to flee countries, this kind of thing, that they were also having this pattern of nervous system dysregulation and skin problems. So again, like what are the patterns that may be in play that are coming up at this time because this frequency is reminding you of what sufficiency looks like. And then we want to retrain ourselves, retrain our bodies into the understanding that we can create our safety, right? So that's a part that's kind of like a handshake signal from the brain to the body once we've gotten ourselves into a place and we know we're ready for something new. And this is a new moon. So this is a good time to do it. Okay, it's a good time to do it. We are in the elements of eclipse right now. So let's not get too crazy out here. This is really just about knowing how completely something can change. But a big part of this frequency is acceptance. We'll talk about that in a second as well. So it's really about how safe do we feel in our body, and the truth of how serious we take life is how clear we are on what safety and playfulness feel like. Okay. So essentially, Richard Wright here says like the formula for a wonderful life is so simple: tread lightly and don't worry so much. Right. So, life takes you where it wants you to go. And that's essentially the truth, right? So the fear here is deeply embedded in the body. It's born in us in the patterns that are developed during our 0 to 7 years. And it's this thing that keeps coming up as that's just the way things are, that you should be afraid, that something's going to go wrong. And that however true that was for you during those years is how much your body is going to keep asserting that that is also continuing to be true, right? So that's what creates the pattern. And on the repressive side, it can look like frigid. So this is Richard Rudd's definition of the repression of this energy frequency within us. and it looks like the freezing of sensuality. So he starts out like, this is not just about sex, y'all. This is about understanding that our actual bodies have forgotten how to feel good, how to play. So if the frigidness is having no idea what it feels like, how to sense pleasure or beauty, what is giving you a beauty sense, because that is also individual. That is also individual. That's why it can be cultural. That's why it can be even, a lot of it can be about what did you see during that 0 to 7 years? Like, what were the frequencies of what you saw in your environment as far as people's appearance, their faces, what was beautiful to you then, right? Or the archetypes of beauty within your family or your culture or your community, right? So these are things that you can lose a sense of if you keep assigning them to other people's ways of seeing beauty, or what other people are saying should feel good to you. Okay, it's really hard. Like, this is something that is very real. I'm just realizing how real this is. But like, this is something that's very real because people have their own ideas of what should feel good as well. And when we supplant our understanding, we're supplanting our body's natural tendency to know what is pleasurable and beautiful to who we are. And so the freezing is no longer being able to sense that, right? On the reactive side, it's being frivolous and having the appearance of life, of enjoying life, but not really. And then you're not taking anything really seriously. And it basically is so that most people are using this as a technique to hide how they really feel, that they're angry about something or that they have an agenda. And so they put on this frivolous facade so that they can accomplish that, right? But ultimately, if it cracks or somebody sees through it, they get angry. This is the tendency. And so, in this frequency, when they feel exposed, people will see that they're being overly serious just as much as they're trying to act like they're not, right? So frivolousness can be again this extension of anger that you are reacting in this thinking of like, if I just pretend like I'm happy and pretend that I'm enjoying life, then people will have to believe it and think of me as whatever you think that's going to create for you, right? So that's the aspect of the shadow. So let's go into the gift. What is the gift? Delight. Remember, delight. So to do delight, you have to escape seriousness and gain acceptance. Okay, so in order to get out of this overly seriousness, you have to accept where you are, right? You have to accept where you are and something about yourself that is correlating to where you are and what you're experiencing. And once you do that, it takes that a sense and it creates an ownership. The ownership is what creates the safety. So I always tell my clients, I don't know about always, but regularly it comes up that we create our own safety because this is something that I've had to entrain in my body. So if I get too much into the old patterns, then my skin starts acting up and all this, right? So how am I allowing myself to be reminded that I am safe? Is through my work and through my method, Oman's method, right? And so I think this is something that everybody has the tools for. Most of us have a voice or sound bowls or something like this. But I think the voice is the most perfect instrument to do work on vibrational entrainment, right? It's already in us. We have it. It's right there. But on more than that, it's within our body. So we're feeling our own vibration. And on more than that, it's in the connection of our intuition. Our intention is born through our third eye and our auric field that is connected to our body. So if we are truly in a reference to our divine essence, then we are allowing that to come through and be born in the manifestation of our voices, right? So intentional voice is bar none the best work it can do, right? So how are we allowing ourselves to accept and create that safety for ourselves? This is my question to you, right? So let's talk about a little bit more. Delight is the feeling of the richness of being alive. And for me, for a long time, I wasn't getting that from externals. Everything outside of me was just scaring the hell out of me, creating more anxiety and overwhelm. I was just shrinking and shrinking and shrinking my world, right? So how did I get out of that? By creating sounds that felt good to me, right? And so I was getting back in touch with my sense of pleasure through my voice and the beauty, what was beautiful to me. So when I had this moment where I had to take back my truth about what I was creating as a musician and stop letting other people tell me how good it was, and not necessarily that they can't, but that I was not letting it make it more meaningful when they told me. What became more meaningful to me was when I found it beautiful, right? And so that is what kind of reawoke in me the possibility of this gift. So, what is it for you? What's there something that you know so clearly about yourself, about what opens you to the sensuality that can move you into this gift of delight? It's the feeling of the richness of being alive. So, what makes life rich to you, right? And the expression here, there's a quote from the Gene Keys here that is, it matters or it doesn't matter. So it's referencing the idea that something matters or does not matter. And it's also referencing the fact that we also call 3D reality and the density things that we can actually feel, touch, taste, smell, and see as matter, right? So that is what's telling us that essentially that we're using our 3D reality bodies, our 0 to 7 patterns, to dictate what matters and doesn't matter. So the quote is, it matters or it doesn't matter, because this is exactly what the gift of delight is based on, an inherent understanding that nothing really matters except life and love. Okay, so this is that truth that our spirits already know that we forget in a physical reality, is that nothing is actually that much of matter, right? It's mostly air. It's mostly air, right? So there is no matter in reality, in the truth of reality. So it's the reminder here and the gift that life is about delight, about life and love, right? And the other piece here that I'm bringing in is taking in things with an open mind and an open heart. So that we understand that luck is what happens when you stop interfering with life. So that is also a quote from the book. So luck is what happens when you stop interfering. And to me, this is again taking things so seriously that you are interceding, controlling, making things that are just not necessary, making life harder than it is. And when people are working me with voice, I talk about making it harder than it is. Singing, it should not be hard, right? We make it hard by thinking we can control it and do stuff that about it that has nothing to do with singing. Our bodies are very natural instruments. And so it's mostly getting ourselves out of the way that the job or the work that we do when we're in class and working on voice. So for synchronicity, you must tap into delight. So that's part of the luck, right? In order for you to be able to have a sense of synchronicity. And synchronicity is really just recognizing when the real life is happening, right? And when we capture that, that is delight. We're recognizing in our sensory element of this felt reality that things are the way they should be. They are sufficient, right? And the essence of acceptance and sensuality is that delight. So the accepting things as they are and feeling with their senses how much that is true in the moment. Okay, another quote It means you hold your goals so lightly that they can be dropped if necessary at any point. To have your dreams come true in life, you have only to remember this one thing: stop being so serious. So that is how we move from out of seriousness into delight. And ecstasy is right behind it in the city. And this is something that I think that I'm also studying I Ching, and so there's two young lines in this hexagram that I'm giving to mean that we're going. You start with the thing that you love, that you enjoy, that you're delighting in, and then you keep going even when it gets complicated. And in that is the continued feltness, sensuality, and delight of life, right? And like delighting in the process instead of waiting for the outcome. So I have a quote here that you may have heard before from Winston Churchill. It is, success consists of going from failure to failure without loss of enthusiasm. And that to me reminds me of that idea from the I Ching, that we are going to keep moving forward, even with complications, and still remembering why we are so delighted in the thing that we've chosen to do and do together, and trust and be sufficient and excited in. Okay. Some journal questions to take with you. Does your time reflect your priorities? What needs to shift? What new actions you need to take to produce more results with less effort? And so, again, start with the right question. What brings you delight? And is that enough of your priority? And what needs to shift to make your delight a priority? And what actions do you need to produce so that your results are delightful? Okay. So that's what I have for you for today, that embodiment piece. I'm just going to ask you to go over to the voice lesson series and enjoy. Enjoy. It's good stuff. And I will see you then.